Hey everybody, thanks for joining today. I'm Shauna Griffiths, host of Real Talk, powered by CMD. And today I am joined by my very good friend, Vanessa Taveras. Vanessa is a total badass in sports and entertainment property representation, also talked about as sponsorship sales. So Vanessa, you were last year a Sports Business Journal game changer, which for those of you who may not know, it's an award that they select a group of women each year to honor, and you were one of them. Very much deserved. You're also Senior Vice President at CSM Properties. So you also don't tend to like the limelight. So again, thank you so much for coming on today. I feel like you're so amazing and we need more of you shared with the world. So thank you.
Hi, Shauna. Thank you. I appreciate you and I appreciate that introduction. And yeah, that's me. So are we done?
It took a lot for me to get her out here, folks. No, but you have got such a great just career journey. And I would love for you to share with people like your evolution in your career journey. And it's interesting because evolution doesn't always mean that you actually land and work at a bunch of different places. It can be that you evolve with a certain group and really, thrive like you have. So would love to hear how you got to the seat that you're in today.
Yeah, it's almost like you know me. I think that's a very fair assessment. I would say, in looking back, my career has been far more linear than I ever would have imagined or dreamed. I sort of fell into a role very early in my agency career. I've spent the whole of my career, 20 plus years, in the sports marketing and sponsorship, really specifically, industry on the agency side. And I grew up an athlete, not a stellar one. I didn't play at the University of Michigan like you did, but go blue, obviously. But I played sports. Team sports were a huge part of my life. I was a big fan. And when I was coming out of school, this business was sort of just kind of becoming known, I think, to people and to me in particular. So I was really interested in getting in on the sports marketing business, and just really by coincidence and timing fell within probably the first year or year and a half of my career into a role that was on the sales side of the business. So building a property representation business within an existing agency. This was not actually an opportunity that I sought out. It was one that was sort of assigned to me. That was the place I was in my career at the time. And I was really intimidated by the notion of joining a sales team. It wasn't what I had seen for myself. And so to look back, I think evolution really is the right term for it. I just kind of timed it where we were building this business unit within one agency, ultimately took that business out of that agency and started an independent shop that over the course of a few years, we ended up selling to CSM. So I have been with a collection of the same people, obviously with some really wonderful people whom I love coming and going throughout those years. But from a leadership perspective, with the same core group of folks for a very long time, but sitting in, to your point, every different seat of the business, right? I was 23 and a year into my career when this whole journey started for me. So I've grown and learned and kind of taken on every opportunity to do each role and within the business, and ultimately now I'm sort of helping lead the team from a senior level perspective with a couple of folks who I've worked with for forever and love. So it has been very much a journey and an evolution, to use your words.
Yeah, that's incredible. As you're talking, the things that really stand out to me are, you being open. And we talk about this a lot on here as I'm interviewing people. And it's so awesome to hear people when they have that yes mentality and that, like, I'll figure it out. And so I think, that had to have been to some degree part of your approach.
Yeah, 1,000%. I look back and I'm grateful that I was, I was young and stupid, but I wasn't stupid enough to pass up an opportunity to be the person working with a partner and a VP at an agency to build a business unit, right? I was the, yes, I'll take that and I'll figure it out. Whatever it is you need, I will figure out how to get it done. And this was in a time where we were faxing things and, like it was, so it's, even those skill sets obviously have evolved over the course of my career. But I think not allowing myself to pass up that opportunity because I was afraid of or intimidated by the notion that it was, sales certainly has put me on this career trajectory, and I think kept me here too. I think, as I've grown and gotten more confident in my sort of ability to do this job and to be this, this in this role, one of the biggest things I've learned is that there's no cookie cutter for what a salesperson looks like or how they sell. And so my style is very different than, even the people that I've worked with for many, many years. And I think that's what makes each of us, pretty successful, is to be able to trust that and follow sort of your own instincts about, being the most sort of true person you can be in this role. That certainly helped me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that was one of the things I noticed about you right away when I got to work around you, is how real and authentic you are. You're not trying to be like anybody else as a quote salesperson. And so I think that sense of self and sense of, as you said, confidence, and it's not something that happens overnight, but it's a great thing that, that you speak of as part of your evolution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, I'm a social person. I'm an outgoing person. So I think it surprises people sometimes to learn that I'm also an introvert. And so, I'm not always the first one to speak in a room. I do a lot of listening, a lot of gathering of information, a lot of questioning. And, those are things that it took me a long time to realize and recognize that they're skills that are actually contributing to the success of my, selling. That, you don't have to be forceful or be super scripted or whatever to be a salesperson. Now, a lot of people already know this. It took me a long time to sort of learn and grow comfortable with that. But once I did, I really sort of stepped into the more outbound sales role in a more comfortable way.
Yeah. I'm smiling as you're saying it, because one of the things that I was going to talk about on here is you have such an amazing way of being really smart and strategic, not only about what you say, but when you say it. I remember I was working, with you on a project, and, I didn't know you that well. And so I really was expecting, again, from a stereotypical like salesperson, for you to be more not listening as much as you did. And it really, I really admired it. And so it was great for me to see, also for me to see a female, being as successful as you are, thriving in what is traditionally thought of a male dominated industry in sports and entertainment, but then also the sponsorship sales side. People talk about everything from a shortage of women in the space, and, you talked a little bit earlier about some intimidation feeling along the way. And I know I felt that way. And people also talk a lot about women not, again, these are stereotypic things, but, not doing enough to negotiate for themselves or on behalf of clients. So, I'd love to have you share a bit about, what's it been like coming up through that as a woman, and, has it impacted your leadership style, and anything you can share about that, I think would be awesome to hear.
Yeah, I think, it's definitely an evolving situation. I think female leaders in our business, particularly, I'd say at the leagues, at the teams, we're seeing, very senior level roles filled by women, commissioners of leagues, for instance. This is really exciting, I think, progress. But generally speaking, one of the things, you know, was sort of partially my own doing and my own perspective or bias coming up, but also I think in some cases really sort of, you know, kind of put on me is the notion that females aren't natural sellers, right? And so you had to kind of always go one step further to prove that you were, right?
Okay.
And also that you become, in small groups in particular, kind of as the only woman in the room, the de facto one to take on more administrative tasks that need to be done, right? We're definitely, I think, not speaking for every woman out there, but traditionally are the ones that are like, if something needs to get done, I'm going to get it done. But at the same time, I've grown into the realization that anybody can take notes in a meeting and circulate them after the fact. And so if we're paying attention and it's always the female that we're asking to do that, then we're contributing to the problem in the cycle, right? That's a very sort of micro example of what happens, you know, more holistically. So I think while we're seeing significant, you know, progress from a female leadership in our business perspective, there's still a long way to go, and there's a long way to go in that sort of career development of young women into these, you know, senior roles. And it starts with like even those smallest things that I still try to keep, you know, very conscious of in my own teams and in the folks that, you know, sort of we work with to ensure that we're continuing to kind of, you know, change that. But, you know, there are definitely more women in the rooms now. And my clients, you know, I'm certainly not, well, I'm not the only person in this conversation that was an SBJ game changer, but also, you know, I work with several women who have been honored in that role too. So it is really nice to see that, you know, we're getting there, but it's still something we need to think a lot about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love watching you as you operate and your level of awareness I think you bring to it. Also, I actually saw some quote earlier today that was about like holding the door open. You know, it's like inviting people, but also holding that door open. And I think I see you do that across, you know, be it race, be it, you know, female, be it the gender side of things, you know, across the spectrum. And I just, you know, I really appreciate that, your commitment to impact in that way, because I think you're right. Like we need to be part of the change. And I just appreciate when I see someone like you doing that, because I think that's where, you know, to your point, there's a lot of work to be done. So yeah, that's awesome.
I appreciate that observation from you. It means a lot. And it's, you know, something that I think, especially at this stage of my career, and in the time we're living in, obviously it's something that hopefully is on everybody's mind all of the time. But it's something that I've certainly struggled with in the sports industry in particular. And I speak really, you know, mostly from the agency perspective, because that's where I've you know, spent my entire career. So I can't speak as closely for the entire industry.
Right.
But it's very male and it's very, very white. And that's not what sport is, right? I mean, sport is, then the reason that so many of us pursued this business as our career path is because it's the thing that, you know, brought us together, that created a, you know, culture that we love and participate in and are fans of and all the things. And it, you know, you see it so successfully used globally, you know, from a philanthropy perspective, even, right? This like notion that sport is a platform that can bring people together. And yet the business hasn't evolved in that way. And so I think it's really important to me, and hopefully I'm taking some of those steps and actions to make sure that we don't wake up 10 years from now and are still talking about this being something that needs to be addressed, right? It's always going to be something we need to think about for the foreseeable future. But hopefully we're making steps that, you know, don't make it something where we wake up and still think it's a surprise that it's all 98% white people in a room in an industry event. So that's something that I'm really committed to. I think we all know intuitively now, and we've seen the data that points to diverse teams creating better work, and it's just, to me, it's absolutely imperative that we continue to prioritize bringing more people with different backgrounds into this business. I think it's where we have to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't be more grateful for your commitment to it. So, I'm right there with you. So, yeah. So before I let you go, I really have got to hear from you about, like, what are you seeing in the space right now, in the sports sponsorship space, and whether that's post-COVID or some trends, or, I'd love for you to share some of that with us.
Yeah, I'll give you my best shot. Of course, there are a lot of people out there that know a lot of things. From my seat, I think there's a couple of things. First, deals are happening, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
Sponsorship sales typically is a longer lead, right? We're most of the time at this stage in a year talking about next year, and finally brands have the visibility into next year. Leadership at these companies have the visibility into next year to be confident that they can unlock some budget and plan for new things, right? I think it goes without saying that it's been an incredibly challenging year for virtually everybody in our business, or year and a half. But on the sponsorship side and the sales side in particular, I think we saw a few phases. The first was like, hold your horses, nobody's doing anything, right? We don't know. I remember so vividly having conversations like, will there be an all-star game? And that was last year. Yeah. Then of course we're having that conversation in this year. So it obviously lasted much longer than anybody expected. But there was first like total pause. And then there was the unpacking of, what do we have currently? And how do we do creative things to maximize what we already have? And then I think for a lot of folks that I've talked to over this time, it's been a bit of a process of sorting through, like, actually now is a pretty good time to take a real clear-minded look at what what our strategy is and our approach is. So it's been a multi-phased kind of recovery, if you will. And we're seeing deals get done in meaningful ways now, which is just, it's great for, morale and for coming to work every day, and people who, are doing deals and doing business. Everybody seems much more confident, which I love. And so that's been part of it, for sure. I think there's obviously the conversation about like how packaging has evolved in this time, which is a big part of what we do, right? We help rights holders think about what it is that they have and how we can bring it to market to brands, and then be responsive to what brands are looking for. And it's been for a long time for us such a focus on both sides of the equation to find these sort of narratives and thematics of partnership that help them, create more impact beyond just the traditional, signage and tickets and hospitality and the way this sort of business started. And I think in this time of, focusing on digital and social and virtual, and rights holders in particular have been pushed to really get creative about what they can do with partners, to be able to tell the stories without fans in seats or, runners on race courses or whatever it is that you're selling. That's not going away, right? No. Everything we've created in this time will continue to be part of the equation. Now, does anybody want to go to a Zoom event right now when they could go to an in-person event? Like, I think we've all agreed, like, we're pretty saturated on that aspect of it. But the balance of being able to do things both in person, physically, experientially, and also, through real meaningful impact virtually and digitally, I think will stay. And for somebody that brings those assets to market, I think it really improves the value of what we're trying to sell the brand. So that's exciting to me too.
Yeah, I think it's tremendous because, like, through this time, consumers have changed so much, that end user that's receiving the message about the partnership. And so I think it's such a, as cheesy as it sounds, because it was, you know, lots of hardship, right? And all this challenge where people say, oh, turn your challenge into an opportunity. But I do think that that's the reality here, is like, there's an opportunity, and also like you have to adapt. You have to evolve your offerings, you know, because I think that consumers, well, I mean, also the B2B audience, you know, is so much more discerning now. And I think that they got such a sense of control almost in a weird way, you know, during this time, that I think that it's a great opportunity for, you know, people who are doing partnerships to really, to your point, really think and be creative about those, you know, the offerings.
Yeah, be responsive to it.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, last question, and then I'll let you go, get back to your busy day. If you had a property, what would be a dream property outside of current clients? What would be a dream property for you to work on?
It's the second time I've been asked this question actually in a week, and it's so hard. I think, you know, there are obviously things that I'm personally passionate about. We've had dream properties, you know.
I know.
Properties. The US Open tennis is one, you know, just iconic stuff. The Masters, the Olympic movement, I think is amazing. FIFA, right? These are the types of properties that don't look to businesses like ours to help them sell. But those are, you know, just iconic, global, have all of the impact, and I just think are so amazing. I think it's honestly, when it comes down to it, it's a boring answer, but it's a formula of, is it best in class? Does it have a little bit of uniqueness to it? And are they good people? And I think that historically we've been in a position as a business where we've gotten to work with really good people, and that makes a big difference. But I also think it plays through to another like trend that we've been talking about in terms of consumers want to engage with stuff they care about, and with companies that care. And so that's playing a bigger role in the way I think about the answer to that question now is, you know, is this a property that's like, it's doing things that will bring the industry and our culture forward to places where I want to be involved in it. And we have a couple of those clients right now for sure that I can say yes to that. So
that's incredible. And I've actually, for those of you watching, even though we're friends, I did not know your answer to that. But I absolutely love it. And I will say partly because I similarly have that type of mindset where it's like, it's not a brand or a certain type that I'm looking for, but it really is like the quality of the work and the quality of the people. And as you said, like the opportunity to impact. So that's awesome. I love it. Thank you so much for coming on again today. And I just am so appreciative.
You're welcome. I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing with this. And thank you for pushing me to put myself out there.
Absolutely. All right. You have an awesome day.
Thanks, Shauna. You too.
Bye.
Bye.